Let's be honest, most fantasy races aren't actually alien or fantastical. They're just human beings in cosplay. We slap a pair of pointy ears on them, give them a brooding attitude, and call them elves. We make them short and give them glorious beards and a Scottish accent and call them dwarves. But as world builders and fantasy authors, we're leaving so much creative potential on the table. When you just palette swap humanity, you miss out on the most fundamental rule of world building, that culture is a byproduct of biology. Everything a species does, how they build, how they govern, how they fight, and what they believe, should ripple outward from their physical anatomy and their natural temperament. Today, we're going to break down how to design a fantasy race from the ground up. We're going to strip away all the tropes and start with the absolute biological basics, and you'll be able to see how a unique society can organically build itself. Step 1 is forgetting everything you know about human anatomy. If you want a race to feel truly distinct, you have to start with how they physically interact with the world. Let's use a basic example: hands. Humans dominate in our world because we have opposable thumbs. We're able to grasp the tools that we create. We can stack bricks, we can forge steel. But what if your species doesn't have opposable thumbs? What if they have talons, or paws, or tentacles, or perhaps even a human-like hand just without a thumb? Suddenly, they aren't swinging standard axes or building square wooden cabins. Their tools, their weapons, and their entire architectural style have to change to accommodate their biology. Then we have to look at scale. On screen right now is a great way to visualize this. We can see the silhouette here, which is the height and the BMI. A towering, massive creature isn't going to live in tight subterranean tunnels unless perhaps they're able to excavate them. And that brings us to movement. We default to walking because we walk. But look at these movement types: walk, swim, fly, burrow, climb, teleportation. If your race is primarily built for climbing, they aren't going to build sprawling cities on flat plains. They're going to inhabit towering redwoods, sheer cliff faces, or deep ravines. If they burrow, their society would be subterranean, and their concept of wealth might even be tied to thermal heat as opposed to something like gold. How they move dictates where they settle, and where they settle dictates what resources they have access to. Once we know what they look like generally and how they move, we have to look at their internal clock. Lifespans fundamentally alter how a society functions. Let's look at this life stages breakdown. We have a species here with a maximum lifespan of 100 years, a 15-year-old child, followed by roughly equal stages of adulthood, middle age, old age, and venerable age. This is the norm for humans, generally speaking, which means their societal pacing would feel similar to us. But what if you tweak this? What if their childhood only lasts 6 months before they are fully autonomous? That species isn't going to have a deep, nurturing, familial bond or organized schooling and things of this nature. They are going to value fierce independence from day one. Conversely, what if adolescence takes 80 years? That species would guard their young with terrifying ferocity because replacing a lost child would take nearly a century. Their entire society would be structured around the protection and education of their youth. The timeline of their biology dictates their family structures, which in turn dictates their communities. So we have their bodies and we have their lifespans. Now let's talk about temperament. Are they naturally robust but lack intelligence? Are they highly charismatic but physically frail? How a species survives shapes their morality. Let's say you have a race that is physically weak. Maybe they are small and they don't have natural armor. Based on that biology, they have 2 survival paths. Path A, they become reclusive. They hide in deep forests or high peaks where predators can't reach them. Path B, they become incredibly aggressive and intelligent, relying on traps, poison, or overwhelming numbers to pillage from more established settlements. This is where you start adding in their natural talents. They have something like a very adaptive mind, picking up skills faster than other races. They're likely to be innovators. They will outpace other species technologically because their biology allows them to adapt. All of this biological math finally equates to their culture. Because they learn quickly, they might have a heavy emphasis on agriculture, trade negotiation, and scholarship. Their preferred professions naturally skew towards being artisans or merchants. By the time you get to designing their government, you shouldn't even be guessing. The answers are already there, written in their DNA. Let's look at this societal profile. We have a feudal monarchy with a honor-based culture. If we look at the sliders, they are slightly expansionist, heavily mercantile, somewhat secular, and somewhat open. Why are they like this? Well, if we look back at our earlier steps, it makes perfect sense. They're an adaptable, quick-learning race with a normal 100-year lifespan and a reliance on trade. Of course, they're going to be mercantile and open to outsiders. They need to interact with the world to thrive. If they were a burrowing 500-year-old race with an 80-year childhood, those sliders would look completely different. They would be incredibly insular, highly defensive, and likely closed off to trade. The next time you sit down to create a fantasy race, don't start with their outfits, their architecture, or their magical swords. Start with their bones. Figure out how they move, how long they live, and how their brains are wired to survive. Let the biology do the heavy lifting, and I promise you, the culture will practically write itself. If this breakdown helped you rethink your world building, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into world building and fantasy writing, and I'll see you in the next one.